Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to day one of Imbibe Live online, part of Global Bar Week. I'm Jo Bruce, a hospitality industry writer and PR, and I'm so pleased to be helping kick off this week of brilliant, informative content for the on-trade. I'm delighted to welcome you to an incredible panel of industry friends from around the UK to discuss the challenges we're all facing and what we can learn from each other. But before we get to it, a quick reminder that we'll be taking audience questions throughout today's session. So please make sure you keep those questions coming by entering them in the box to the right of the screen. So, time to introduce our panel. I'm delighted to be joined here today by Ian McPherson, bar owner of Panda & Sons in Edinburgh, who's 3 sites. Also, Bobby Hiddleston, owner of Swift in London, which is bars in Soho and Shoreditch, and Lyndon Higginson, founder and director of 16 different venues across Manchester. So welcome, everybody. Just before we get into the questioning, just to let the audience know as well, we have a poll running today. The question is, what's been the biggest help to your business during COVID-19? So do get involved in that, and we'll be talking about the answer to that later. So hello everybody, and we can start kicking off this session. Just want to go around and ask you a little bit more about your businesses and where you were at before the COVID-19 crisis, what you also did sort of during lockdown, and where you're at sort of since reopening. So if I can kick off with you, Ian.
Sure. So I guess first lockdown for us, we're very busy, loads of tourists, everything was going well. We were able to acquire our first ever freehold site, so our 4th site, end of last year, with plans to very much open that in kind of June, July time. And then obviously, lockdown happened in March, and just quickly, I guess in the run up to that, February was when we kind of started to see it starting to slow down and starting to see the real impact it was going to have on all of us. And then lockdown happened, and we just wanted to kind of work out a way to keep busy and trying to keep afloat, and a way to kind of pay up what was due to our suppliers, basically. So we set up a business called Edinburgh Booze Delivery. And I guess before I go into that, it was very much a time of upskilling for me, where at the beginning you had lots of offers of help from pals, like, oh yeah, I can help you build a website, etc. And then it got to the crunch, and they're like, no, that's going to cost you thousands of pounds. And then one of my web designing friends, in a bit of a dig to me, to sent me an hours-long YouTube video and was just like, good luck. And I was just like, okay. So it kind of gave me a bit of fire in my belly to prove them wrong. So I learned how to build my e-commerce website on Shopify, which is a great site to use. And we built a company called Edinburgh Booze Delivery. And, we've always been very looking after our staff welfare, paying real minimum wage. We do a profit share of our staff. So we wanted to kind of look at this on more of a greater scale for the city. So what it wasn't just our bars, it was all the local bars in Edinburgh, local breweries, local distilleries, and the basic idea of we all have our large audiences, but if we combine them together, we'd have a lot greater audience. And it was also a help a lot of bars, because not all bars here in Scotland have an off-license capability. So even if they wanted to sell from their venues, they couldn't. So what we were doing is allowing them to get some revenue built up. So it was successful, for the large chunk of like 3 to 4 months, it worked really well. We're still doing it, but it kind of was put more onto the back burner while we refocused reopening the 3 bars that we had. And I guess since pre-lockdown, lockdown to après-lockdown, now the 4th bar, we're kind of designing it around what we find ourselves in now. So once we do open up as a kind of bar, it will still have a very much kind of click and collect, delivery kind of aspect to it, where it's kind of a bottle shop. We'll have minimal seats around the bar, and then we'll be running a kind of a good food offering, which again will be could also be collection or delivery as well. So that's where we're at now at the moment.
Brilliant, thanks, Ian. And Lyndon, if you could tell us a bit more about your businesses and what you've been up to.
Well, yeah, sort of pre-lockdown, you know, the same as Ian, well, the same as everyone, I think. You know, everything was going well, and you know, I sort of, you know, we had 15 sites, so you know, these two were laughing before when I said how many sites I've got, and you know, before lockdown, it was really good thing to say you've got 15 sites. Now it's like, shit, I've got 15 sites. You know, it's becoming a lot more difficult. But yeah, I think things are going well. You know, I'd say I'm not shy about telling people figures. So I might as well tell figures because everyone always talks about percentages without any figure. So 50% of no idea is still 50% of no idea. So, you know, we were probably turning over about £30 million a year across all the venues. And, you know, whilst that sounds like a lot of money, which it is, you know, all of that money is pretty much used to pay staff, to pay rents, to pay everything. You know, that money slowly turns into, you know, I'm not a millionaire, but it slowly turns into the amount of money is needed to run these sites and to make sure everyone's, you know, happy and well paid and are in great jobs. You know, we've got over 400 staff. And, you know, what money does become sort of building up in the bank accounts, you open another bar with it. That's how we've always worked. That's how we've always been. And, you know, long may that continue. So we thought. And then lockdown happened. And, you know, we were earning exactly nothing. You know, we were in the mindset of, let's see what happens here before we sort of start trying to do anything. You know, we weren't a shop, we weren't a takeaway, we weren't a this, that, and the other. We were bars where we wanted people to party and have a good time, and you can't do that if they're set at home. So we sort of took a bit longer than others to, you know, to look at our other elements of how we're going to do that. In the meantime, I built a bar because I was literally crawling the walls after about 2 weeks. So we thought, me and another lad, a mate, just turned my local into a little tequila bar. We were in there every day, just doing everything from building walls to fitting windows to doing all the electrics to the plumbing to everything. Tiling, just always get a tiler in. My top advice is do everything apart from tiling. That's horrible. Never tile. And, you know, that was me keeping myself busy. But, you know, the staff were kind of being looked after with furlough. But, you know, it slowly, you know, we slowly came out of that. We slowly came out to a new world, I guess. And the world we came out to was very, very different. You know, to be able to make £30 million across the board for these sites was soon, obviously, you know, soon to be seen as impossible. And of course, you have to look at different revenue streams to make this happen and to get these things working. I think before the curfew happened, I think we're all across the country doing really well, and you know, adding other elements, doing a few little offers here and there, and you know, making things work. Albeit, you know, our staff were getting paid the same, but the top line wasn't necessarily as high as it used to be. But that's fine. You can cope with all of that. You can deal with it. And then curfew kicked in, and I would say that completely decimated all of us. That decimated. Hi, Andrea. Sorry, my girlfriend's there. I've got to open the door. Hang on.
Start the show.
What do you think? What a thing, Andrea.
Best
Sorry.
Appearance from Andrea here.
Sorry. So yeah, the curfew completely just, I think, took us all back a little bit, you know, and it wasn't, you know, last orders at 10 o'clock. It was, you know, get everyone out by 10 o'clock, making the streets full of people, all potentially a lot easier to catch a virus whilst they're trying to get home. And yeah, you know, after the curfew, we're sort of at least 50% down across all of our sites. And some sites, you know, Pedro's Northern Quarter was doing about 41 grand a week. It's now doing 14 grand a week, just to show the difference. And you know, most of my places are late night bars, so they might still go to their nice pubs and this bar and this restaurant for a meal. And they're used to, you know, of course, going to my places after 10 o'clock. So to even get some 14 grand is quite an achievement in some of these places, but that is not going to, that's not going to last, unfortunately.
And Lyndon, where's your where are you at the moment in terms of, obviously there's going to be an announcement from Boris later today, and obviously Manchester's sort of one of those areas that potentially could be impacted. And where are you in your thinking in that? And there's a legal bid challenge as well. What are your thoughts?
I mean, we're quite lucky in Manchester. We've got Andy Burnham and our councillor, what's he called? Richard Lees, Sir Richard Lees. Sorry, Sir Richard Lees. They're sort of backing us. They're fighting our corner, and I think they seem to be doing quite well with it. You know, they're not accepting the payment plan from the government, because they understand that, you know, if that's for any length of time, that can see businesses go under. I fully back. I'm fully with us all to do the right thing to make sure that this thing goes away, but it can't be to the detriment of a £60 billion industry.
Okay, brilliant. Right, let's bring you finally, Bobby, in. So good afternoon, and if you could tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to.
Yeah. Well, we have Swift in Soho. It's 4 years old now, and it was doing very well before lockdown. We were in process of trying to get the second site open. We got the keys in February, which at the time seemed like a really good thing to have. And yeah, the business was fine. Obviously, everything locked down, we shut down, and it obviously killed everything. We tried to, well, we did bottle delivery service cocktails over the summer. We did that in partnership with our sister stores in Norway, because they obviously under the same thing, so we kind of umbrellaed the delivery in that one. So we all together, so we some deliveries within those three and us all in the same place. But again, it was just a case of ticking over, because about like 40% of our staff at the time weren't furloughable. No, it's not that much. It's not much now. 40% of the staff now aren't furloughable. So we had to keep them busy. And a lot to do with the furlough was the trunk wasn't allowed on it, which was a big issue for us, because it's a big factor of our wage system.
Bobby, sorry to interrupt. We're having a few issues hearing you, so I don't know if
is the audio wrong? Let me see if I can readjust. Am I better?
Can come back to you. So I'm going to move to Ian and come back to you. Cool, okay. So Ian, obviously you're in a lockdown situation in Edinburgh at the moment, and obviously you mentioned your kind of click and collect and delivery businesses kind of kicked in again. So what else have you been doing sort of since reopening as well to kind of drive footfall and, you know, just bring in trade where you can?
Well, first and foremost, on Friday we had until 6 o'clock, so I thoroughly enjoyed my drinking time till 6 p.m. and had to recalibrate basically, but I need that sometimes. I think all of us, just a big night, reset, and yeah, so we've already been planning pre that, and we've got some ideas. So obviously we're going to reinstigate the kind of buy booze over the door, but we're also now talking to a lot of friends that are really talented chefs. So unfortunately, you know, especially the food sector, being really affected as well. So you're finding a lot of amazingly talented chefs that don't have a job at the moment. So we found a few during the running up to this. We're doing a lot of pop-ups in people's kitchens, in bars, but they weren't using a lot of equipment. They're really savvy about not having a full kitchen, you know, just a couple of induction hobs, prepping a lot at their houses. So we realized, hey, we could actually be delivering some really banging food from our hatches with these guys. So the next couple of days, we're trying to finalize plans with them to offer some kind of food through the hatch that really kind of ties into that kind of lunch to afternoon crowd. But yeah, continuing that, and what we're doing now is just refocusing on the Edinburgh booze delivery. We kind of whistled it down to 1 day a week. Just to be honest, it did become kind of like this unwanted child that we had for when we reopened our bars. You know, it was all fair and well when that was our only focus during lockdown, but then suddenly you're like, I've got to open 3 bars. Oh, and I've got this annoying delivery service going at the same time. Yeah. But look, you know, it was great, but at least we kind of kept it kind of in the background, ticking over, just to have it there so we could kind of really blow it up again. So that is the plan this week, to really expand to maybe 2 to 3 days. And again, just trying to keep myself busy and keeping like our core our core team's busy as well, and you never know. Like
with that, Ian. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just cross questioning you.
Go on.
With that, do you, what sort of, you know, the revenue out of that, is that enough to prop up, you know, you and your managers and everyone who's obviously getting paid a salary, and then, you know, do you have your other staff waiting in the wings for it if that gets busy, or what is there a sort of plan with that, or just sort of see how it goes?
Yeah, so I've not been paid since February. I made that kind of decision, and I put a lot of my savings into well, basically, back into the businesses, just to kind of keep it there, and just kind of being quite savvy with my money. But I was just keeping ourselves busy, and the way I saw it was, if I wasn't paying myself, as long as I wasn't shooting myself in the foot, still can repay my mortgage with what I've saved, etc. But it was more just to kind of make sure we're putting as much money back in to make sure we're just paying off all our creditors that we were owed money. So basically, after the first lockdown, we were actually able to pay off a lot of our creditors. We're pretty much entering this phase, I guess you guys are still in, and kind of debt free, which was good. But yeah, the biggest shock for us was basically having to have a lower GP, and then I suddenly actually gave our suppliers a lot more respect, because they work a lot. They work as hard as us, but for a lot less GP on
they make 30 pence on stuff.
It's ridiculous. So it's given me a newfound respect for them. You know, I'm not just treating them like some donkey bringing me my booze every week. You know, I suddenly realized the mammoth task they have to actually make any money. So that was a big shock, and it was just, you know, having to work harder for less was a bit, you know, I guess we've all got our kind of egos in some sense. So it took me a while to kind of just get over that and just be like, no, I need to do this.
I think that's a massive point as well, that every single one of us, from owners to, you know, to every single person in this industry, is working so much harder for so much less. So and it's everywhere, isn't it? You know, even from security to people who are cleaning the venues and things like this, they're all of a sudden don't have anything to do. You know, it's horrible.
And even asking for help for us as well, you know, that was again just kind of biting your pride, you know, like, oh, can you help me do this delivery? Or and I just you know, I think mentally it's a lot. I found that was the hardest part, just preparing yourself and getting used to asking for help and doing a lot more work for less. But yeah, I mean, that's us, and basically what we're doing now. And I guess even though Nicola, who I've been, you know, really supportive until the point of the last 4 to 5 weeks, because obviously we've also had the no music thing for the past 2 months, which is ridiculous. Then we had the 10 o'clock, which we've all had, and now we've got this. But we've told the staff, like, this is going to be 4 to 6 weeks, because we know we're not the main problem in terms of why this is spiking. So unfortunately, it's going to keep spiking right now. It's not going to suddenly go, oh, look at this curve, it's going down because all the bars and restaurants are closed. It's going to keep spiking. And unfortunately, that means things are going to be even tighter in terms of measures.
And I think a big point there is as well that, you know, whilst we're being kind of blamed for this, which we all know is bullshit. You know, we've all, it's safe in any of our places than it is in a school, never mind anywhere else. But we've had people, you know, having a drink, having a good time in our venues, and then leaving there at 10 o'clock, somehow finding the way to get home. It's £4 times more expensive for a taxi. So they're on public transport, or they're all together, and we'll still get the blame for it because they were in our bar safe, but they can catch COVID on the way home. And it's a lot easier to catch it how they're being turfed out all at exactly the same time across the whole of the United Kingdom. It's crazy.
Bobby, can we just try and go back to you again? Could you
just see if you can hear me now? Is that any better?
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so if you could just finish sort of explaining a little bit more about what you've been doing as a business and sort of new ideas you've been focusing on as well.
I think the biggest focus we've had to do is get the second bar kind of salient, because we planned to open it in April, but obviously that didn't happen. So when we started the build, we'd done like a week and a half of the build when the lockdown came in. So we're like, what do we do in this case? Like, we would either just eat the money and then open, or we push on forward. The decision, there was only one decision for us to push on forward. And we built it, like the builders could come back to work in June, but we obviously couldn't come back till after that. So it was built and ready to go kind of mid-level. And obviously we've had to kind of redo the whole business plan, because the business plan was, you know, to have 50 people in this space, and right now we can't safely put more than 20, 22 at the moment. So we've had to kind of reevaluate everything. We've readjusted everything, what costs we've had to do, everything, like what can we buy, what can we not buy. The only advantage we've had on this one was that we hadn't hired for the second site yet. So when we had to skeleton down the first site, we had the ability to split staff so that no one actually lost jobs. We had hours for everyone, which was a relief. Actually, it was the only silver lining we could grab out of this.
Okay. And in terms of the second site as well, you've got much more of the Shoreditch site, you've got much more of a feed offer there, haven't you? And, has that been kind of, you know, an important revenue stream, obviously?
A revenue stream. It's doing okay. Like, I mean, the idea on this one is supposed to be all day. Like, we planned on opening at 8 in the morning, and we did. But because where we are in Shoreditch, there are no offices around, and that was going to be a big chunk of our business. So we just didn't get daytime business as we wanted. So we're still open at 11 in the morning. We run. It's steady, you know. It'll do. But like, I'm kind of scared to see the first quarter's numbers on this one. Really, I've not seen them yet. It's not something that I'm especially looking forward to. Yeah,
absolutely.
Soho's doing all right because Westminster Council, actually, as much as the national government has been basically cocking it up, I found that the local councils, like you said, in Manchester, London, the Westminster Council have actually done really well. They've pedestrianised a lot of Soho, and they've done a really good job of just kind of letting people try and run businesses in the best way. So we've had an outside space for summer in Soho, which has done really well. It's kind of got this kind of alfresco thing going on, which is really helpful for the business. But again, inside of the business is still only half capacity, and now at 10 o'clock, and we don't know what's going to get announced to have to be today as well. So we can do anything.
Absolutely. Okay. Just a reminder to the audience, if you have got any questions, you know, do send them in, and we'll try and get them into the session. Lyndon, in terms of what new ideas have you done across the sites to kind of try and drive trade, you know, since maybe the 10 o'clock curfew, or just generally, what are you focusing on that's working well?
I mean, we doubled the price of the wings at Bunny's from 10p to 20p. It's gone crazy. Actually, weirdly, it's doing all right. We somehow we decided that we're going to sell 10p wings or 20p wings. The idea of Bunny's was it was always a loss leader. So, you know, you apply people with lots of spicy wings and they spend a lot of money on beer. Now we're potentially going to do that on Deliveroo, which probably is the most ridiculous idea ever, because we're like, but our chefs will be busy. So that's one thing. You know, I guess, you know, the thing is, like I said before, it's sort of, you're trying your best to come up with these ideas, but all you're doing is essentially making a lot less money, and whilst you're a lot busier. And, you know, we're doing things like, what are those all-you-can-eat brunch things and stuff like that? I can't remember what they're called. My head's all over the place. Bottomless brunches, yes. Which, you know, I think, I've always thought with those, my God, I could send a place under if I drank for an hour and a half for free. But, you know, they're working. You know, people are coming to those. We were really busy on the weekend with bottomless brunches across a few of our sites. And, you know, we'll do a few more things like that. We want people to come in. We don't really mind if we break even across everything, as long as, you know, all I want is the money to be able to pay the rent, and I want my staff to still have a job. And that's realistically the bare bones of what we're trying to do, I think. And I think that probably goes for everyone across the country. If we just about break even, it's fine. Across 17 sites, if we lose $1,000 a week, you know, it doesn't take a genius to work out that's not sustainable. And all you have to do is be down $1,000 a week. So we've got to kind of pull out all the stops to do all of this. We've got to try and, you know, I'm saying all this whilst looking at Ian thinking, God, it's, you guys over there are completely fucked at the minute. And we've, you know, I feel hard done by with the 10 o'clock rule, which is bullshit, but having to just drink outside until 6 in certain places, and you guys are completely locked down, is just ridiculous. But, you know, I think there's some sort of element of, you know, we've always, in this hospitality industry, always kind of looked at something and got a solution for it straight away and pulled something out of the bag and been able to do it. And it's kind of, we've all been good at that across the board, but the bag's getting deeper and it's kind of getting empty. You know, there's only so much more we can do until we've got to have a realization that, you know, some places are going to close down. And, you know, I don't want it to be any places that I love. You know, my own places included. You know, it feels a little bit like we're kind of on the front line here, and you know, we're getting, there's just snipers out at us, and we can't do anything about it. And you know, they're going off stuff that they've talked about in their own bar, in the Commons bar, after hours probably, and they don't have a clue that there's late night venues. You know, they think that they've put a curfew on at 10 o'clock, and their local in the countryside closes at 11, so they've lost an hour. It's not, we you know, some of my places, you probably won't even go in there till 10 o'clock. So, you know, they've not thought about the nighttime industry at all. They're thinking about country pubs and putting a curfew on everyone. And that can't last. We can't carry on with that. There's only so long that the money in the pot is until it runs out, and then places close and people have no jobs. Luckily, they've put a really good scheme out that you can become a plumber or something, though, if you're if you can't be a bartender. Ridiculous. I don't know the answer to a lot of things, but I just know that I know what the problems are.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Ian, what kind of tips and ideas? I mean, you know, obviously, as Lyndon's saying, it's still hugely challenging times at the moment, but in terms of things you've maybe done that you could give others as kind of tips and ideas on operating more profitably at the moment and kind of reducing costs?
Sure. I mean, I guess the obvious things to start off with is eat well and cut your drinking down and do exercise. I mean, I think for all of us, we probably had a bit of a wayward 2 weeks in the first part of lockdown in March. And then kind of, yeah. But you know, I try and just have those kind of those nights, just kind of get them out of the way, out of your system, and just refocus. But yeah, I mean, for us, I think maybe for all of us, I mean, God knows what it's like for 16 sites, but our holding stock when we went into the first lockdown was a bit frightening. You know, we had, you know, then I started realizing, you know, sometimes you give your managers a bit more trust than they should get sometimes in certain elements of their jobs. And, you know, in Pandas, for example, we had 16 bottles of Amontillado sherry when I had a look at the stock tick, and I was just like, bloody hell. So then we had to get a lot more smarter about this, talk to our, you know, the brands we have agreements with, and so listen, we'll warrant this, we'll extend this or pause it and look at this next year, but right now we need to stop buying as much stock and really just trimming down what we're holding, because we're gonna, you know, look at us, we're in a second lockdown. We were already planning for this when we reopened. We're like, we need to get rid of this holding stock ASAP and make sure we're not holding loads of kegs, because after the first lockdown in just over 2 sites, we had 15 kegs out of date. Fair enough, a lot of them got taken, but again, you know, you get fooled once. We just can't. You got to learn from what happened the first time, and I think that's one thing. You have to write down things you wish you could be prepared for and get prepared for it this time. Because I really hope on later on today that you guys aren't going to get it like we got it. I doubt it. I just think Nicola's a bit mad at the moment, to say the least, in very few words. But just do that, and you know, listen. Like, one thing we found as well, one thing we loved about Edinburgh Booze Delivery was we weren't just fighting this fight on our own. It can get quite lonely for you if you've only got, say, one other business partner, and you're just like, what is happening? You know, there's no end in sight. But you know, for us, we found with the Edinburgh Booze Delivery, especially, we created a kind of really lovely community where, like, one of the bars, the Pop-Up Geeks, were really good at designing bottle labels for the to-go cocktails. So they helped do that for all the other participating bars. We showed some of the bars had to carbonate stuff and etc. So we started like really skill sharing, which was a really lovely sense of what's so great about our community. Anyway, we know how great our industry is. You know, we all love each other. We love going, and you know, everyone kind of knows each other or knows someone. That's
a really cool thing as well, I think, because you know, when things are going well, you do farm all this stuff out. You farm out to this person, that person, and you know, a website's going to cost, it's 10 grand, fine. You know, and this, that, and the other to carbonate this, it's a few grand. But there's people, you know, like you say, who can do these things, who are great designers, who already work for us. There's, you know, out of all of our staff, I guarantee there's loads of people who can do loads of different things that you don't even realize as well, isn't it? And I think that's a great thing to kind of keep them in the family.
Yeah, that's a real positive, hasn't it? That's come out of this is okay. Bobby, in terms of any tips or ideas you would give to sort of others, other bar owners, in terms of anything you've done that's helped
I think the most important thing that we've done is candor to the rest of the staff. Is like it's a very difficult situation in every respect, but also particularly financially, and it's important that to us that we thought and we showed our managers everything that we were doing. Like, obviously it's in everyone's interest to go like, okay, if we do this, this is why we need to shave these hours, this is why this is what we need to do to not lay anyone off, and that's the important thing. Yeah, so it's an important thing that we need to do is make sure that everyone is on the same page. I mean, you can always say, oh yeah, we are going to be fine, or do this, but then without figures and stats to back it up, you can't really justify that kind of thing. So making sure everyone was on the same page, everyone knew where we were right at the start. And then the 16th of March, the day before we shut down on Paddy's Day, a full staff meeting, and we said this is before furlough was announced. We said this is what our financial situation is to the whole staff. If we have to shut down, this is how long the business will last. Because we said we were going to give them a living wage. We calculated how much the London living wage was, and we were making sure that every member of staff was going to get that for as long as we physically could. And the furlough did help that, a big chunk of that fairness, but obviously extended our shelf life for a little longer, which was good. But yeah, I would just say make sure that everyone knows where you are and people are going to understand where you're coming from rather than just try and second guess what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. And Lyndon,
I think sorry to add to that as well. You know, I think you know, there's a tendency. I certainly feel like this. You know, like when you see on a cartoon and there's like a steamroller coming towards you, and everyone's like and the steamroller's coming really slowly. There's a tendency you can just get into that vibe, and it's like we're all going to be kind of just crushed. But you know, you're like that for ages. You can go around and you can think, you know, that there's other things to do, and you know, it's a battle. But I think, you know, there's a few people who are kind of just in these headlights, really worried about it at the minute, and it is a horrible, worrying situation. But we can, you know, we can walk around this steamroller and crack on a bit more.
Absolutely. Okay. And Lyndon as well. Obviously the 10 p.m. curfew's been in place for over a couple of weeks now. How have you driven trade sort of earlier in the day? Are you really pushing like the 5 o'clock kind of?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's a difficult one to get the people's heads around, because everyone has a set sort of way they kind of go out. I certainly do, and they all end up in my venues at the end of the night. So to try and get them in early doors has been quite a struggle in some places. But you know, to get them in, we're doing the offers, we're doing different things like this. You know, we're opening, you know, some sites. Bunny Jackson's open at midday now rather than 5 o'clock, and you know, it's helping. You know, it's helping a little bit, but we can be very, very quiet in there. You know, you've got to do that. You've got to spend a lot of money on marketing. You've got to spend a lot of money on letting everyone know that you're out there. And once they're there, they love it. But it's getting them out. And you know, realistically, we're all of my sites are quite drink led, and I don't necessarily want to be pushing people getting leathered at midday. You know, not too much anyway.
Brilliant. Okay. And Ian, what have you done? You've kind of adjusted your opening hours and days, haven't you? How are you kind of driving people in a bit earlier?
Well, we were pre-lockdown. We opened, I think on general, we're open usually 4 o'clock in our units, but we moved that to 2 o'clock to try and make up for it. And as Lyndon says, it was just weird, you know, you don't want to like advertise getting absolutely smashed at like midday. So, but yeah, what we did find was, you know, we were busier the hours we were open, but already with the restrictions, we were already down. So we're just basing it on when we were still at, you know, regular opening hours, and then 10 o'clock, and it's just just an upward battle. I mean, I had a dream last night that I was in that film Warrior, and I was having to fight for everyone's survival just to win the tournament to get some cash in. So I'm open to that right now. But yeah, I mean, that's what we did. We opened earlier. But yeah, I think it's just a bit uncertain right now.
Yeah. Okay. And Bobby, you've been doing kind of like your own eat out to help out again this month, haven't you?
Yeah.
How are you finding that?
Yeah. Well, it's actually like Eat Out to Help Out scheme actually helped Soho more than it did Shoreditch, oddly enough, because people came to eat in Soho and then came to drink with us. But then obviously 10 p.m. was an issue on that one. Our Shoreditch site has more food based around that. So we've been doing brunches and various different things. We've gotten a couple of chefs in to come and do some guests and things like that. So to bring trade in the daytime, because it's important to get the day trade in. We opened a couple hours earlier in Soho, but 1 to 3 p.m. trade was not based 10 to 12 p.m. like midnight trade. It just doesn't come close. So it helps. It means that we have the hours for the staff, which is primary for me. But it's not a cover. It's not the same stats. I checked figures for last week, and we were down something like 40% on last year, and that's over 2 days compared to 1. So it's not insignificant numbers.
Okay. And Lyndon, I mean, there's a lot of talk, sort of in the media and industry, a lot of reports around, changes in consumer behaviour and how that, will change the industry and just sort of consumer trends going forward. What would you say are some of the biggest changes that you've maybe seen in the industry and in terms of like consumer behaviour as a result of the crisis? And do you think they'll be long lasting?
Well, I certainly don't hope any of this is long lasting, because it's kind of so difficult for all of us. I think, realistically, I think, science says it takes 4 months for any sort of habit or trend to ever form for a human being to get their head around it. And do you know what? Could we cope for 4 months if we're all having to close at 10 o'clock? It would be hit and miss, because slowly people would change their routines. They would come out earlier. They'd start drinking earlier. They'd do all these different things. But in 4 months, for that to be able to form some sort of thing in somebody's head, most places would be closed down anyway. Basically, I don't think it can last. As it is right now, we can't cope with a 10 p.m. curfew. Half of my venues will close if this has to be open. If this has to carry on for 6 months, Junkyard Golf Club, that they do pretty well. The one in London's doing really well. You've got a perfectly good metal stick that is 1 meter long to make sure you are fully, nowhere near anybody else. Some venues will survive, but others where it's, they're just used to this late night thing. I haven't seen a difference in trend. It's kind of the same as it is. The only thing I've seen is that it's 10 o'clock and there's not a single person in the venue because we've been forced to close. And I think, I personally think we'd all be better off being locked down with some government help to be able to get rid of this thing and then reopen as we were doing before, because I think we were all doing fine before the curfew thing happened. The curfew is the thing that I think has made businesses not viable. And that's the thing that's going to run them into the ground. People were safe in the venues. People were in work. People were in jobs. Everything was okay. And we saw spikes, not because people were drinking in our bars. We saw spikes because people went back to university. We saw spikes because people did frequent bars, but the bars are being unfairly blamed for it all. We're the scapegoats for all of it. And we'll be the scapegoats again when everyone gets more and more of the virus from trying to get home by God knows what means, when they're all on the street at the same time. There was people playing cricket in Peckham the other night on the street because cars can't even drive down the road. There's that many people on the streets. That's a surefire way for a virus to get bigger and bigger. not while you're sat down miles away from anyone in a venue. You know, the venues are doing the right thing. And I think, I'm sorry, I went totally off your point what you asked. I can't remember.
No, that's cool. No, that's cool. But no, thank you for that.
We need to stop this curfew, basically. It needs to end.
Yeah, okay. Ian, in terms of, you know, new opportunities that have come out of this situation that bar operators could take advantage of. I mean, obviously you've set up the Edinburgh Breeze Company. Do you feel like there are other new opportunities that you know, operators can look at?
I mean, unfortunately, there'll be a lot of bars for sale. You know, I mean, I guess unfortunately, that's a sad reality of this. And you know, I think the weird thing is it's kind of survival of the fittest. I think whoever gets through this storm is actually going to be actually more than okay. It's just about making it through this, because at the end of the day, we don't know if this is going to be 3, 6, 9, 12, 24 months. We have absolutely zero idea. The government have absolutely zero idea, zero plan. The only thing is to look at making action as against us, just to make it seem like they're doing something, which is ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, there's opportunity there. You know, in a weird sense, if you've got any little things that you just couldn't do while you're open, like revarnishing your bar, doing this, lots of stuff that takes a couple of days, go for it. Keep yourself busy, do it, and just get stuff done, because a lot of the stuff you won't be able to do. And guess what? You're wanting to be open 7 days a week once we're allowed to. So get all those little annoying tasks that all your managers niggle at you at every week. Get those done now as well. I mean, for us right now, we're getting the fourth bar up and running. We're getting the kind of pizzas doing that. So I've been teaching myself, just learning about pizzas basically. So taught myself like Chicago Town style, Detroit style, New York style, just really getting my head around sourdough style. Just really getting my head around. Yeah, what's that?
Was it the Detroit pizza?
It's more about the sauce. So they say their main key difference is using dried garlic granules as their main thing. So I think it's a bit of just trying to get part of their city associated to a pizza. But it was interesting just to do anyway. But yeah, then that's what we're doing. Because also my worry now,
a Detroit square as well, or rectangular quite often.
Yeah.
We're already going on a tangent here.
Let's talk about pizza.
but also for me as well, is like, even when we were at capacity with all the regulations pre this lockdown that we're going through right now, is basically, even if we wanted to, we couldn't hire back some of our staff. We're at this point now where it's impossible to hire any more of our staff due to distancing, the capacity of the venues. So that's why we're actually pushing forward with the foresight. You know, to be honest, we probably wouldn't be bothering right now, but we have to premeditate past furlough and make sure we've got some jobs for these people. And I know if we open this place with the food offering and bar, and I've already told all the staff that can't get put back off furlough that they will be doing both. We'll be taking food shifts and bar shifts, and they're totally up for that. And that's what I'm trying to do right now, is at least get the kitchen ready. So if this lockdown is going to be 1 to 2 months, which I think it will be, at least we can start doing some deliveries and collections for just the food right now. And then that'll be our first phase of reopening the fourth site. Because actually some of my friends here that have got pizza places made record months during lockdown. And I was just like, pun intended, I really wanted a slice of that. And,
slice the action.
Yeah, because again, I'm like Lyndon, like we don't do really any food. We do like cheese boards, snacks, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, all this Eat Out to Help Out is great initiatives, but we couldn't tap into that. So we're really having to like be a bit smarter now, going, look, we need to add some food element to our overall business offering, just in case they do stuff like this again, we can tap into it. Because, you know, especially the VAT as well, 5% and stuff, you know, we're not exactly making millions off selling Coca-Colas right now. So yeah, I mean, that's
it. Just a reminder to the audience, do take part in our poll, and we'll be announcing the results shortly. And also, again, final call for any questions that you may want to put to our experts here. So Bobby, in terms of your reopening drinks list, what did you reduce that? Have you had any new focuses? And are you seeing sort of any different sort of consumer tastes since they've been returning?
It's a good question, actually. We considered shortening the menu. We saw a lot of people around us were doing short menus, but our menu is like, it's fairly concise anyway. Plus, we've also got like a whole load of brand deals, which we weren't going to welch on. We've got a lot of brands going. Yeah, we need to do these. And we think our menu is quite solid for what it is. So we didn't narrow it down any as such. But in terms of what people are drinking, it's a difficult one to say because we sell a lot of classics and kind of simple comfort drinks. And people are drinking a lot of them. I mean, our biggest seller is Irish coffee by a long way, and it has been every single week since we've reopened. So I think people are wanting something familiar, but I don't know if that is just because they like drinking familiar drinks here, or if they're just simply, that's probably not the best one to ask actually, because I don't have a cross section.
Okay. Lyndon, have you noticed any changes to what people are interested in drinking since reopening, and what have you done in terms of your menus to make them kind of obviously as profitable as possible?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Pedro's is probably a good example for, you know, we've got we used to do delivery with Pedro's with Deliveroo. You know, it's heartbreaking to have to pay somebody quite a big chunk of your profit when you do that. You know, I much prefer people to collect them, but I do think that people, especially when they've been locked down for a while, you know, they're not bothered about cans of beer. They're not bothered about this. And they actually want something that they can't make or do at home. Or, you know, I think that's a really big element that everyone needs to look at. You know, if you know, I'd have one of your Irish coffees sent here now, Bobby, but it's going to take some packaging, that is, to get it over here. But, you know,
we looked into it. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, it's really not. I mean, we're looking at doing sort of part baked pizzas to send across the UK, and whilst it's, you know, reasonably cheap to do it, you know, you've got to get a blast chiller to be able to chill them down, and then, you know, they bake at home. To get that sent and packaged properly so it stays at the right temperature just takes all the profit out of it. It's quite difficult to do these things. There's loads of ideas out there, but it's actually how to do them whilst, you know, we've got to make money. We've got to make money to be able to do everything else. You know, I do think that people do want stuff that they can't have at home. I certainly do, and the more of that's available for either collection or delivery will help a business out tenfold, I'd say.
Okay. And Ian, anything to add on in terms of what customers are looking for in terms of their drinks, or from what you've done in terms of your list?
Yeah, we reduced our menu down to 12, again, tapping into like being a bit smarter about our holding stock, but obviously still making sure it tastes delicious. But they're doing that, and, you know, just we had a lot of deals, and, you know, we didn't want to kind of necessarily cut on quality and what we were offering, but, you know, if there was a really banging vodka at a slightly better price right now, we were buying that option. You know, we're not going to buying Aldi's own vodka. Look, we're never going to fall on our swords that way. But like, yeah, but like, look, if we've got a better alternative that you find in the blind taste is just as good, go for it. But be honest with your you know, your brands that you've got agreements with, and they've been really understanding of us. But I think it just takes that, you know, just opening that conversation up with them right now. One thing I find good as well was with e-commerce, we found the analytics was really, really interesting, really detailed. So, you know, we could find out what people are key searching that we don't have, et cetera, et cetera. Like even during the first lockdown, the amount of people that are just searching keg, draft beer, pint, and we're like, okay, let's get the bars open to take away beers. And, you know, it was through that understanding what the consumers were craving, what was interesting. So
everyone wanted a pint of Guinness, didn't they?
Oh man, me too.
Yeah, certainly did in this house. We now have the results of the poll, which kind of echo what you guys have been saying. So the question was, what has been the biggest help to your business during COVID-19? And the top choice was, people have said, is new drink services, so takeaway and delivery drinks, which kind of echoes some of the stuff you've been talking about, Ian. And number 2 was starting and growing a food offer, which again is something that I know you, Bobby, and you, Ian, have kind of talked on upon. Number 3 was retail sales, and number 4 was more online e-commerce sales and opening new sites. So cool. But yeah, so kind of very much echoing what you guys have been talking about in terms of what you've been doing as well. So yeah, okay. So back to you, Lyndon. Obviously, it's been an extremely challenging time for business owners, but what would you say have been the biggest learnings out of this situation that you will take forward, and you know, any more positives you touched on earlier about skills being used from other people in the team?
I didn't realise I'd said any positives. I was going to try and come up with one now. I mean, you know, sadly, I think the biggest learning thing is that I feel like we're very much all on our own in the hospitality industry. I feel like we're built to last. All of us are. I think we're very resilient, but we are very much on our own, and there's not that many people kind of backing us on our side, and you know, that's a bit of a shit thing to learn, really. And I don't know. I think you know, like I say, people are kind of quite set in their ways about stuff as well. I mean, it's a very, very difficult thing to get your head around, and I wish I knew the answer that we could all be sort of coming away from this going, you know, everything's going to be amazing, everything's going to be okay again. Don't worry, we'll just get through this bit. But I think the unsurety is in everyone's minds, and it's, I don't know, it's quite scary. I'm a bit worried about it. What was the other bit to it? Sorry, I forgot a positive again.
Yeah, no, just like if there's anything that you've learned that will help, you know, that about the business really that will help you going forward.
Don't know.
No.
Do you know what? Everyone has been, just to sort of follow what Ian said, really, that our brands that we work with, the companies that we work with, actually learning from them that they're like, do you know what? Don't worry about this for now. You can, you know, worry about the bigger picture and come back to us afterwards. You know, people like Speciality doing really cool little food packages and sending them out to people was amazing, and such a really, really nice touch from somebody that they didn't have to do. There's a lot of people who are really, really just really genuinely nice people, and they're all in this industry. So knowing that there's that, you know, with unfortunately the government and all that shit, the other side of it, you know, it does make things a lot easier for all of us as people in the industry, you know, and long may that continue, that these, you know, people do help us out, because we need it, you know. They'll all have a free drink in my bars when they come over.
Yeah.
Not the government.
No, I definitely mirror that. One thing I've taken off this is that a lot of people in this industry have this kind of bravado in front of them. How's business? Oh, it's great, it's great, it's great. And then a month they close. And I think it's nice that people are now honest with each other, and it's no longer taboo to say, actually, business is a whole because of the situation. Everyone is in the same boat right now. So it's one of these, oh yeah, me too. What are you doing to help? And there's no sense of like this kind of slight backstab rate that does exist in this industry to an extent as well. And I think it's all gone. And honestly, I think that people are now just genuinely just looking out for each other and helping each other, which is a big positive. There's no, oh, he's closed, I expected him to close. No, it's none of that. It's all people going like, oh, what can we do to help?
It's a bit like bowling. You know, when you go bowling, you really want your mate. You're kind of against. But you want him to get that strike, don't you? You're all kind of, you're playing, you're doing your own thing. You want to win, but you still want that guy to get a strike. You know, you all want everyone to kind of come through this.
Absolutely. Ian, anything to add on what would you say, like the biggest learnings and any positives that have come out of this for you?
Just keep eating humble pie. They're in my only diet at the moment. So yeah, I say I'd recommend that for everyone else, and to support each other, as Bobby and Lyndon are saying. You know, like there's no end in sight. Like, you know, we could all just start moping around and giving up and doing that. But what I found is, you know, I think Lyndon touched on again, was like, we're such a resilient, we're tough bastards, you know, we're not gonna give up. And look, it's gonna get dreich now. Like, we're entering winter, everybody. So we need to just keep going. It's going to be harder this time because there's not as much sunshine, shorter daylight hours, but we need to keep going and showing why this industry is so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly is an amazing industry. Bobby, how are you preparing for any more, obviously it's still very uncertain what's going to play out in the next few weeks, months, but how are you kind of preparing for that future uncertainty?
Well, we've got several business plans is the answer. We don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We've got the kind of as is business plan, which is 10 p.m. and just see if it goes, and we need to see if that goes. If we can drive business at 10 p.m. We've got the what are we going to do for lockdown immediately? What are we going to do for lockdown for 2 weeks? What are we going to do for lockdown for 6 months? Or what we're going to do if 10 p.m. is lifted and we get what we're going to do if social distancing goes. We've got at any one point 7 or 8 different business plans that we can refer to and frequently change. There's short answers, no one knows. We really don't know. We just have to have contingency plans. We need to plan for the worst one and then just hope that there's some sense will come to this, and then we can actually start trading properly.
Yeah, okay. And Lyndon, I mean, obviously we've talked about like how challenging it is, how stressful it is, how uncertain it is, but I mean, how do you kind of unwind from that, or what things have you helped or enjoyed doing and beyond? What would you recommend to other people that's kind of helped you kind of deal with the stress of it all?
I mean, I've
you still want to ask Lyndon.
Yeah, it's a high risk strategy.
I don't drink at home. I've stopped drinking at home. I think it would be quite easy to look at all of this and go, shit, this is the worst time in the world ever, which it kind of is to some extent, and drown your sorrows and get into the bottom of a bottle and forget these things. But that's just forgetting about what's important, and what's important is to get these things happening, moving forward and carrying on and staying open. I can't do that whilst I'm hungover. I've probably been out 4 times in the last sort of 4 months. I mean, I went out for about 48 hours a time and got absolutely smashed. But I've been out 4 times. You guys have seen how drunk I get all the time, and I'm still the last one there, and probably still end up the next day. You can't do that at the minute. You've got to take this really seriously, and I want to be able to get free drinks in my bars and yours, and I want these things to stay open. But to do that, we've got to really dig deep and forget about partying and having a good time. We've got to really, really concentrate on this, because you don't know from 1 minute to the next what's going to happen, and you've got to jump on it. It's like they're flipping a coin, and we've got to just react to that instantly. And my God, you can't do it with a hangover.
I'm going to interrupt because we've got 1 minute left, so I'm going to go to you, Ian. So have you got anything to add to that in terms of de-stressing tips, and what would be your final kind of piece of advice to any bar owners who are feeling overwhelmed with this situation at present?
Yeah, but be open to ask questions. I think a lot of people are bottled up and being stubborn and don't want to need help, but we all need help right now. We all need to support each other, and we could all wear. I mean, Lyndon, are you selling those hoodies? I really
good, aren't they? This is my interview hoodie.
But and also, ladies and gentlemen, Lyndon's not been home, so his loophole of eating healthily and not drinking at home means he is never at home. So, but yeah, just tips and just exercise. Obviously we want to see Strava blowing up now in the next couple of weeks, especially in Scotland. But I can't reiterate how I know it sounds so easy, but it's not easy to get your foot out the door of your trainers on and actually just go for a run or do something. But for me, the amount of stress it helps with is unbelievable.
Yeah, brilliant. And Bobby, finally, just anything to add in terms of?
I'm mirroring the exercise if you can. It's easy to not, but it's good to get out. I think the best way is mental preparation. Expect things to go in the shit and then be pleasantly surprised if they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you so much to you all, to Lyndon, to Ian and Bobby for your really honest and generous insights into what's going on in your businesses at the moment. And good luck to you all over the next few weeks. Thank you, everybody, for watching this session on Imbibe Live online as part of Global Bar Week. All the sessions will be available to watch on demand straight after this. And don't forget that this is just the start of a full week of exciting content. So do come back and watch more sessions, and make sure you check out the rest of the programme. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you to the panel, and keep safe and well, everybody. And
Cheers. Good luck, guys.
let's keep fighting.
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed for your announcement on Monday as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers up.